So it turns out we're just big fans of keeping the engine idling. Specifically what I'm talking about is sometimes it's not appropriate to go hard in the paint with our athletes. They're blown out, they've got a tweak, there's something going on. I want to introduce a couple different ways that we have to apply techniques to make the training session a little bit more interesting. Now, typically we always think about the only way to get better is to challenge load, right? Or to make the muscle contractile features more effective, or the coordination. Sometimes, though, we can just go after dumb physiology. And one of the ways that we can keep this low skill, low sort of mechanical high physiology is through two ways. The first one is to introduce some breath control work into the training. So we can do breath holds, we can talk about sort of breath control work, and suddenly 20 minutes on the bike as a conditioning piece or an idle piece or a circulation piece or decongestion piece becomes heinous and hard. And we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you a couple examples. And then the second piece, which we'll talk about tomorrow, is introducing blood flow restriction training, but not doing it the way you traditionally do it for hypertrophy, but thinking about using it for a little bit longer sessions at much lower sort of intensity. So that'll be part two. Today, though, I want to introduce just a couple ways. Now, I am a big fan of the assault bike. I think it allows us to get work done with three limbs if something's strained. You know, people actually do sports around here, and once in a while they come in with a wing that needs a little bit of rest or some kind of strain. So one of the ways we can do this, instead of just going right after our sort of raw, nasty, high power, high physiology training, which of course is sometimes valid, is to, again, introduce some breath holds. So one of the things that we like to do, say, for an example, on a 1 minute piece, would be say, hey, I want you to go for 20 seconds and then take a breath at that 20-second mark, biggest breath you can, hold it until you die a little bit inside, until you get the biggest desaturation burn possible, then see if you can't recover to the top of the minute. And one of the nice things about that is that gives you an opportunity suddenly to add in some volume. Hey, let's see if we can get some volume for 10 seconds on the inhale. So let's see if you can inhale, work at an intensity that's appropriate, 10-second inhale, hold, then let's see if you can go as long as you can. We can track that. We can see how well you're going. And what ends up happening is we get huge desaturation moments in the limbs. So the working limbs undergo something called dynamic apnea, which is shorthand for I'm working while I'm holding my breath, versus static apnea, laying in the pool quiet, right? So teaching yourself to work in these conditions is brutal around for the brain, but also you're going to feel like, wow, that felt like a normal sprint. So instead of adding the intensity, we're basically shutting off the O2. So it's an interesting aspect of a way to make this psychologically challenging, but also get this kind of big physiological response. One of the things we like to do is do that same idea, say, hey, take a breath hold at X amount of time, and then as soon as you need to breathe, see if you can pick up the pace a little bit, add in a little bit more of a sprint. But even as a simple model of being able to change or modulate breath holds into the work for 20 rounds becomes brutal, and people actually report to us that they feel scared, and these sessions are harder. And you can have heart rate at 120 in these things, so we can, again, protect tissues, baby tissues, but really smoke someone's physiology. One of the classic pieces came up with by Brian McKenzie is to go ahead and just do one breath every 5 seconds. So that's a nice way of really trying to get people to start thinking about breathing as a skill on top of, hey, instead of just getting on the bike for 20 minutes and going unconscious, let's see if we can actually develop some other physiology. Or, per Sean McBride of our staff, is one breath every calorie. So you get a breath a calorie. However you want to modulate that, entirely up to you. So the bottom line, though, is there's lots of ways to play with this. One of the protocols that came to us from a coach who was working with French freedivers was to at the top of the second, so at top of the minute, 50 seconds to 1 minute, you would take a 10-second inhale, breath hold, and then repeat that cycle. So we've started to kind of take that idea, but what he's doing is seeing how high a heart rate you can maintain that. So at least getting a 10-second hold, preferably a 20-second hold, but seeing how long you can develop that heart rate at a fixed amount of breath hold. So if I go 10 seconds in, max hold, a sprint, heart rate 120, right? heart rate 130, or I can look at my cadence. I'm trying to see if I can actually do work, and I can use that as a gamification of saying, hey, I was able to hold this intensity for 10 seconds. And then we can ramp that up. So the early ones are very easy, but at 60, I want you to do a 10-second inhale or a 5-second inhale and a 10-second hold. And then we can begin to challenge the physiology with a little bit more intensity. Again, still keeping that 10-second hold. Not that 10 seconds is magic, but again, the idea is, hey, let's manipulate breathing physiology, let's manipulate breathing mechanics to get some work done when we need to have the athlete protected or not under a lot of physical strain, but still capable of some physiologic strain. See you tomorrow.